So my dear children, in the earlier chapter we discussed about the food preservation methods and what are the additives. Okay, then within this chapter we'll be starting or we'll be identifying, right, other things contained with the lesson part. Especially now you are given here with an activity. In this activity we'll be focusing, right, on how to create jam as a preserved food. You know that jam is a food item that we consume in our day-to-day life for like more often, right? With bread and with biscuits we use jam, right? And even for when we are taking small bit of snacks we use jam. So jam is a very popular food item that we consume in our day-to-day life. And you know that jam can be kept for about longer time period if you keep it in certain if you keep that thing in a refrigerator according to the given values, so according to the given conditions. So my dear children, as you can see here, jam is a type of a preserved food then, as we can keep these things for a longer time period in our environment. So we will be within this activity we'll be focusing how to, or the method of preparation of jam, right? The method of preparation of jam. So let's head on to see what are the materials that you need in the preparation of jam, right? So first of all, you know that we are making jam, so we'll be needing fresh fruits. So fruits. We'll be needing about 500 grams of fruits. Then sugar, about 500 grams once again. This is citric acid. Then pectin. Pectin is a type of a, right? Pectin is a type of an additive, right? We discussed about the pectin in the earlier chapter, my children, right? I think you could remember it. It's a type of an additive, right? So we'll be needing pectin. Then the third additive is final one, sodium metabisulfite. Sodium metabisulfite. So these are the ones that you need. You'll be needing fresh fruits, some sugar, citric acid, pectin and sodium metabisulfite. So these are the materials that you need in the preparation of jam. Okay, right then. So let's head on to see how to prepare jam. Okay, how to prepare jam. So my dear children, the method is given by using this flow chart, as you can see within the figure, right? This flow chart indicates how to prepare jam, the process of preparation of jam, right? So first of all, let's see, right, what is the method. Okay, so the first and foremost step is given in preparation of jam. What you have to do, you have to pluck some fruits which are fresh, and first of all we need to wash those things very well. So fresh ripe fruits, then we have to wash these things, okay, very well, in order to remove those dirt and any other substances contained within it. So wash these things very well. First of all, you can use any type of a fruit. It can be pineapple. If you are taking pineapple, right, first of all you have to cut those things and you have to remove the outer layer, right, in order to obtain that yellow color fleshy part. So you remove the topmost layer. Okay, if you want, you can take mango also. So in that case also, you have to remove the greenish color layer so that you can get the inner fleshy part. Okay, pepper also the same. But however, when you are selecting these fruit items, my dear children, you remember that we have to remove the seeds, right? You definitely need to remove the seeds, right? Otherwise the taste would be different. We only need to use the fleshy part of it, right? Remember that thing. So always we are removing, but we have to remove the seeds. Okay, and the outermost layer also, we are only taking the fleshy part of the fruit. We need to take only the fleshy part of the fruit, right? It's important to take only the fleshy part of the fruit. Remember it. Right then, so here, first of all, we need to take then fruit items. So when you are selecting fruits, it's okay to select different kinds of fruits as well, like a mixed fruit jam. Okay, it's okay to select different kinds, but however, when you are selecting, make sure to remove the outer layer and also if there are any seeds. Okay, right, then the next step. So I told you to wash them, right? Then after that, we have to remove the skin and seeds. All of these things should be removed. So I told you that step also. Then cutting into small pieces. So we have to take each of these fruit items. Then we have to cut these things into small pieces. Okay, these fruit items needed to be cut into smaller pieces. And the other thing is that, my dear children, when you are selecting these fruit items, always these should be ripe fruits. Okay, don't take raw, right? Raw ones. Always these should be ripe fruits, well ripe fruits, right? So take ripe fruits and do the thing, right? Do these things. Right then. Then the next step, after cutting into small pieces, right, we have to heat this thing for about 3 minutes. But before that, you have to add 1 gram of citric acid. 1 gram of citric acid. You have to add 1 gram of citric acid, then mixed very well. Mix these things very well. Then you have to heat about 3 minutes. Okay, then you have to heat about 3 minutes. Then after that process, after 3 minutes of time period, my dear children, you have to add 10 to 15 grams of pectin. So this is, I'm talking about for about 500 grams of fruits. Okay, this specified things are given for about 500 grams of fruits. So if you have a like scale, you can measure the fruits that you are going to take, mass of fruits that you are going to take. It should be around 500 grams. Okay, it should be around 500 grams. So you take 500 grams of fruits, right? Then you have to add these things. Add the citric acid first, then you have to mix it very well, then you have to heat it for about 3 minutes. Then after that, you have to add 10 to 15 grams of pectin and 200 grams of sugar for the same solution or for the same mixture. Mix it very well. Then you have to further heat, but here this time you have to heat it very slowly. Okay, heat the system very slowly. Then, my dear children, mix about 300 grams of sugar once more. So here once again I told you that we are discussing for about 500 grams of fruits. So for 500 grams of fruits, you have to add here 200, here 300, altogether 500 grams of sugar. Then, my dear children, after adding all of these things, once again you mix it very well, right? Mix the mixture very well, solution very well. Then heat it at a high temperature for a short period of time. So we have to increase the flame, right? We have to increase the heat energy and we have to heat the system for about 2 minutes, right? We have to Heat the system for about 2 minutes under 100 degrees of Celsius. In very high temperature like 100 degrees of Celsius, we have to heat the system very well. Okay. So it is given heating at a high temperature for a short period of time for about 100 degrees of Celsius in 2 minutes. Then the final additive, my dear children, which is sodium metabisulfite. So you have to add sodium metabisulfite into it after the heating process of 100 degrees of Celsius. Then, my dear children, you have to mix the mixture very well. Once again, you have to mix the mixture very well. Now, jam is being prepared. Okay. Now the jam is being prepared. What do you have to do then? You have to bottle these things in sterilized bottles while remaining at the same temperature. So it's important to bottle these things, right, within the same temperature, right? So now the container, after it's been heated for about 2 minutes under 100 degrees of Celsius, you have to take that mixture, then within that temperature you have to bottle it. Remember, okay, don't allow it to cool. Make sure you take the mixture and bottle it within the same given time period, right? Within the same time period. Don't allow it to cool, right? Remember that. So this is how to prepare jam. It's very simple, my dear children. Only thing that you need to do is you need to find out, the difficult part is finding out these additives, right? I think you have to visit for a supermarket in order to get these things. Others are very simple, my dear children. Only thing that you need is some fruit items in making this jam. So preparation of jam is a very simple process. You can do it even at the home, right? It's a very simple process, right? You can find out different types of fruits, right? When there is a season, fruit season, right? You can find out different types of fruits like rose apple, mango, papaw, especially pineapple. If you have strawberries, right? Or else if you like to prepare like a mixed fruit one, then you can collect all of these things together and you can make this jam quite easily. The only difficult thing is finding out these chemicals. So in finding out these chemicals, you have to visit different shops and supermarkets sometimes. Okay, right? So this is how to prepare jam as a preserved food item. Right, this is how to prepare jam as a preserved food item, my dear children. Once again, we'll follow up the method. First of all, you have to take these fresh ripe fruits and we have to wash them very well. Then we have to remove the skin and the seeds of the fruits, right? Make sure to remove seeds. Okay, it's very important to remove the seeds, otherwise the taste will be different, and also it's difficult to use that jam also, right? You only need to take the fleshy part of the fruit. Remember that thing. Then cutting into small pieces. We need to cut these things into very small pieces, right? Then we have to take a good pot. We need to insert those things into the pot. Then we have to add 1 gram of citric acid and we have to mix it with 1 gram of citric acid and we have to mix it very well. Then after we are going to heat it. Okay, then we are going to heat it. So after heating for about 3 minutes, you have to add 10 to 15 grams of pectin, right? 10 to 15 grams of pectin and 200 grams of sugar into the pot. Then once again you have to mix it very well, then allow it to heat once again. Now when you are heating, after adding these things, you have to heat it very slowly, right? We have to like minimize the flame somewhat and you have to heat it. Then my dear children, after heating it for about like 2 to 3 minutes, right, what you have to do, you have to add three other 300 grams of sugar also. So I told you that this is for about 500 grams of fruits, total mass of 500 grams of fruits. So 500 grams of fruits, you'll be needing 500 grams of sugar also, 200 with the pectin and other 300 after heating the above mixture for about like 3 to 4 minutes. Okay, then you have to heat it at a high temperature by adding these things all together, mix it very well. Then you have to heat it for about a very high temperature, like up to 100 degrees of Celsius for about how much? 2 minutes. Okay, for about 2 minutes. Then my dear children, finally you add the final ingredient, the final additive. What is that? Sodium metabisulfite. Sodium metabisulfite. You add sodium metabisulfite at the end, right? Then you mix the mixture very well, right? You mix the mixture very well. Finally, then after that, my dear children, you have to bottle these things in the same temperature, right? Within the same temperature, you have to add these things. Okay, so when you are adding sodium metabisulfite, it's enough to add around 0.2 0.25 grams of sodium metabisulfite. Okay, 0.2 to 0.5, around 0.2 to sodium 0.5. okay, 0.25 is pretty much enough. 0.25 grams is pretty much enough. 0.25, okay, 0.25 grams. So you have to measure and take these things, my dear children. If you increase the dosage, I told you that it would be somewhat difficult to consume, and it's also somewhat harmful to our health as well. So within this temperature itself, you have to take the mixture and you have to bottle it, right? So after that, you can consume this jam by chilling or by cooling it down by using a refrigerator when you need. So jam can be kept for a longer time period without getting spoiled or without come in contact with the microorganisms. You can keep it for a longer time period. It's not going to spoil also, as you know, right? It's because, my dear children, here the concentration of the water concentration is very high. See, here you can see that we are not going to add water also. So the concentration is very high, and also we add several additives in order to preserve the food item. So my dear children, this is the way of preparing jam at your home. Okay, so at your home, I think that you also follow up these steps, and you will prepare a sample of jam with your home, or with your sister or any other mother or any other family member, right? Try to do this thing, right? And if you do, like, if you want to get a very clearer or very good idea about making jam, and in order to get even more sense, you can refer books, magazines, and even with the internet also you can get the more help, right? So by that way, try to make this jam at your home, my dear children. It's pretty much easy. Only difficult thing is to find out those chemical substances, but however, if you get the help of your adults, you will be definitely finding out these things without any trouble. Right then, so this is how the jam is being made in our houses. Not in our houses, in even in the commercial markets also, jam is being prepared like this. Right then, so let's head on to see what are the other contents in our lesson. Right, there is a food process. If there is a food processing factory in your area, such as canned fish, sauce, cordial, jam, arrange a field trip to observe it. Observe the manufacturing process. Draw a flow chart to represent the process. Prepare a booklet about your field trip. Right, so now, my dear children, you can organize a field trip. When you are organizing trips, you can give an idea to your school teacher also, right? annual trips you know that you are going to do, or in these days, right? Normally students are tending to travel some annual trips, right? So you can give an idea for your teacher also, right, to travel to a destination like a jam complex or a jam factory, sauce factory. Like that way you can observe the method and you can get a good idea about the preparation process. Then by observing the processes, right, you can prepare a booklet on how to prepare these things. Okay, what's the way, what's the process of preparing these food items like sauce, jam. You select a certain type of a factory and you go for a field trip and observe how these things are being made, what are the things which are being added, and like up to which kind of a mass, right, up to which kind of a mass they are when they are producing these jam or whatever the food item per day or per week. Okay, they ask about the things that they are going to add and about their dosages, also concentration. So by that day you can get a good idea about preparation of these foodstuffs, right? And also you can get a good idea about the preservation of food also. So don't just visit and forget it. Just try to like get a good sound knowledge about the process by preparing a booklet or any other study like study material, right? Try to make a flow chart during the preparation of food. Try to make a include the steps and try to make a flow chart. So by that way your knowledge will be definitely enhanced. Okay, so my dear children, try to do this at your home or at your school. Give this idea to your school teacher or to your home, right, to your adults. Try to find out the way these things or these foods are being prepared. You can prepare a booklet or else a flow chart. Okay, I hope that you might do this thing, right? It's important to visit these things so that by that way you can clearly see or clearly observe from your naked eye. Now here we are just telling like do it like this, do it like this, do it like that. No, but however if you go and visit over there, then you can get a good sound knowledge, and also these things will be kept in your mind for a longer time period also, right? Right then, so I hope that you follow up with the assignment. Okay, so let's head on to see what are the other contents. So here we are discussing about various types of preserved food. So we discussed about the food preservation process, and even we discussed, my dear children, about the jam, a type of a preserved food. How to make jam, right? We discussed what are the steps of making jam in the above activity. Now we are discussing about other different kinds of preserved food that can be seen within our market and within our day-to-day life. So various types of what? Preserved food. So here there are some preserved food, or some preserved food can be directly consumed. So my dear children, there are some preserved food in our market. We can take that food item and we can directly consume it. We don't need to even heat those things, right? You can directly consume it. Jam is a good example, right? We just take the bottle, remove the cup of it, then by applying it on a bread or any other alternative, then you can use it, right? Jam. Then my dear children, we'll see what are the other things here given with the examples. Jam, chutney, right? Chutney, like a type of a pickle, right? Chutneys, right? Mango chutney, right? Like that way there are several. Lime chutney, there are several chutneys. So those are also being bottled, and even and in the supermarkets you can take these things, right? Sometimes chutneys are being prepared at your home also, right? Your mother is an expert. Sometimes your mother will be an expert in making chutneys. Okay, so my dear children, chutney is also a type of a preserved food that we most often use in our day-to-day life. So these chutney items are a type of a preserved food that can be directly consumed without cooking or any other processes. Okay, then sauce, tomato and chili sauce, right? Oyster sauce. Then like there are different other kinds of sauces as well, right? Burger sauce, like that day. Then barbecue sauces. So there are several kinds of sauces that can be observed in our market. These things are used in different kinds of like different kinds of uh, occasions. Mainly, however, we use tomato sauce. So with bread, with bun items, we use tomato sauce, right? Bread and bun items, more often we use tomato sauce. So my dear children, sauce is also a type of a preserved food. Here we use tomato, and tomato is being made into a like a concentrated solution, right? So that concentration solution is added with other different types of chemicals and other types of additives, so that we can eat it with bun items and any other food items. Okay, sauce. So sauce is also a type of a food item, a preserved food item that can be directly consumed. It is also a type of food item, right, that can be directly consumed, a preserved food item that can be directly consumed. Then fruit drinks. So fruit drinks also, like cordial, there are fruit drinks in our market. Okay, sometimes cordial should be added with water. There are some certain fruit drinks, however, right? Okay, cordial type fruit drinks, only just need to add a straw and you just need to drink it. There's no other thing to do. However, if it is somewhat like freezed, then it is better, right? Then it is better. I mean, the taste would be better, somewhat better. So these fruit drinks are also a type of a preserved food, my dear children, which can be directly consumed, right? Which can be directly consumed, right? Preserved food item that can be directly or which can be directly consumed. Right then. So these are some food items that can be directly consumed. Okay, preserved food items that can be directly consumed. So my dear children, examples are chutney, jam, sauce and fruit drinks. Then some preserved food can be consumed. Some can be consumed after instant preparation. Instant preparation. Instant preparation means, my dear children, within 2 or 3 minutes, just by heating it, we can consume. It won't take that much long time. Okay, it will take around 2 to 3 minutes. Within 2-3 minutes, you can prepare it. Instant food. Okay, so these food items are also being preserved. These food items are also being preserved. Preserved food items that can be prepared instantly. So instant food items. Let's see what are the examples. Before that, there is another one given. Those are food types packed after subjecting to complex process and addition of preservatives. They are known as processed or pre-cooked food. So my dear children, these things are, if you take instant food, these things are processed food, pre-cooked, right? Earlier, like in the factory itself, these things are being cooked, pre-cooked, added with different types of preservatives and additives and other stuff. Okay, so these food items undergo in a complex process. So those things cannot be even do it at our home also in normal conditions. So they travel or they follow up with a complex process, my dear children. Okay. So here it is given once again, these food types or those food types are packed after subject into a complex process and addition of preservatives. So several preservatives are also being added. So that's why these things are known as processed or pre-cooked food. What are the examples? Meatballs, sausages, noodles, macaroni, coconut milk powder, and cordial, right? So you know that coconut milk powder that's available at our markets. Pretty much easy to use. Time is saved plenty. So if you take normal coconuts, you have to scrape it. Then you have to, like by using your hand, you have to pressurize it. Then you have to take out the milk. You have to even use the milk strainer to remove the milk, coconut milk, right? So our normal household people, right, with this tension time periods, right, you know that our time period is somewhat now when you take the urban areas, right? In urban areas, my dear children, okay, most of the people, they're doing jobs. They have very complicated lifestyle. They're waking up in the early morning, then run here and there, they prepare some type of food, then they go to the office, they work for about 8 to 10 hours, then in the evening they come back home. So our lifestyle is very complicated right now. But however, in the ancient time period, people haven't got this kind of a complicated lifestyle. However, with the globalization and converting these villages into urban towns, our life has got somewhat complicated. So this complicated lifestyle, okay, within this complicated lifestyle, my dear children, the main thing is saving of time. So in order to save time, these instant food items are pretty much helpful, right? So like I said, my dear children, if you take households, it's very difficult to cook in the morning time period, okay, by using a coconut, like fresh taken coconut. However, by using coconut milk powder, this time period can be reduced by like 15 minutes. You just need to take that coconut milk powder, add into water, mix it very well like milk powder, and you add to the meals. So it's very simple and time saving. So for this complicated lifestyle, my dear children, instant food are pretty much helpful. But however, there are complications as well. We'll be discussing those things later with the lesson part. Okay. So these food items like meatballs, sausages, noodles, macaroni, coconut milk powder, and cordial are pre-cooked food, processed food. Okay. And also these things are instant food, my dear children, right? They would take like 2 or 3 minutes to prepare. Okay. Then some preserved food needs to be cooked before the consumption. So there are some preserved food, we need to cook it before the consumption. We can't directly consume. What are the examples? Most better example is dried fish and dried meat. Is meat also. If you take dried fish and meat, we have to cook it before the use. And my dear children, what is the other one? Cereals, like grains. So these grains or cereals, you have to cook it. Otherwise, we can't consume. Okay. So these are the types of food items, preserved food items, my dear children, that you can observe in your day-to-day life. So there are some food items which are preserved and directly be consumed. Chutney, jam, sauce, fruit drinks are the examples. there are food items which are preserved and it can be consumed after instant preparation, means will take around 2 to 3 minutes. Examples are meatballs, sausages, noodles, macaroni, coconut milk powder and cordial, right? So these things are also called as pre-cooked food or processed food. Then my dear children, there are some certain preserved food items that need to be cooked before the consumption. So we have to cook these things very well, right? Not instant, we have to cook it very well. Examples are cereals and dried fish or meat. Okay, right then. So you are given with another assignment, my dear children. Let's see. Prepare a list of processed food available in the market. You have to prepare a food. We have to prepare list of processed food that is available in the market. So in the earlier slide also we discussed several food items, processed food items like sausages, meatballs, noodles and other. Okay, so like that way you just go through with the when your mother or father, when they are going for a shopping, right, to get retail items, you go with them and go for a supermarket and observe what are the pre-cooked food items, right? What are the processed food items that are available in the supermarket? You make a list of it. Okay, you can make a list of it. Then investigate how food items such as fruit cordial, lunudehi. Lunudehi means pickled lime. Okay, pickled lime. Lunudehi. Tomato ketchup. Ketchup means tomato sauce. Okay, are prepared. So you have to investigate this thing. Find out the process. Investigate. You can refer like videos. You can refer magazines, booklets, and even the internet will give you a clue, right? So investigate how food items such as fruit cordial, lunudehi, tomato ketchup or tomato sauce are prepared. So now if you take like lime pickle or lunudehi, you can just find out the way of preparing these lunudehi or pickled food, right? Pickled lime especially by your grandmother or your mother also would know. So you ask what is the method of preparation, okay, how to prepare this thing. Definitely your grandmother or mother will know for sure, right? Because within their lifetime, I think at least one time they have made these things, right? It's like their hobby actually, like they're in leisure time period, right? Your mother or your grandmother, they would prepare different kinds of food items which can be kept and can be consumed. Okay, especially pickles, pickled food items like lunudehi. Okay, then pickles, pineapple pickles, right? Like that way your mother or your grandmother would have some experience in making these things. So you don't need to investigate by using any other sources. You just can refer your or you just can go and ask from your elders in finding out making pickles, my dear children. It's very simple. Okay, so investigate about these things, not only with the pickles, right, but also try to find out in the making process of or the making process of ketchup and other things which is given in the table or which is given in the question. Okay, right. Make those food and taste them either in the classroom, in groups, or at home. So now what do you have to do? You know how the process of making these things now, right? Like in the earlier chapter, right? Like in the earlier, when I was starting this chapter, right? We discussed how to prepare jam. So you can take that thing as an example, right? At your home, you can prepare jam and check whether this thing is good or not. Okay, so like that way, try to investigate about those food items and way of preparation, and at your home try to make these things, or in your school also you can do it with your friends. Okay, but make sure to get help from your adults or from your teacher. Make sure to do that. Right, then finally, indicate by flow charts how those food items are prepared. Now, by using a flow chart, my dear children, what you have to do? You have to write it down how these food items are going to be prepared. Okay, use a flow chart and indicate. Right. So now I am going to give you, or I am going to indicate a flow chart. I'm going to give you the main step of making lunudehi or else pickled lime, right? Okay, you can just take 10 or 15 lime fruits and try to do this thing at your home, just for your fun, my dear children, right? For your in your leisure time you can do this thing, right? Prepare this thing and check whether you can, right, check whether you can eat this thing. Okay, actually you can eat, but however check the taste of it. Okay, right. So I'm going to give you the steps of making lunudehi or pickled lime. Try to follow up these steps and make a sample, okay, and taste it and see whether it is good or bad. Right, so let's see how to prepare these pickled lime. Right. So I'm going to show you how to do pickled lime. So first of all, fresh ripe lime. Okay, fresh ripe lime. You have to take fresh and ripe lime. Okay, remember it. Then, my dear children, what you have to do in the next step? You know, you have to wash these things very well, right? You have to wash it very well. You have to wash it very well. Okay, then what you have to do? Then, my dear children, I'll include, after washing these things, you have to take each of this fruit and separate into 4 pieces, but however do not separate entirely. Okay, do not separate these things entirely. Cut these into 4 pieces, but do not separate. Cut the lime fruit into 4 pieces, but do not separate. Okay, just keep one bit of a layer at the bottom. Okay, right. So I'll mention it like this. Cut lime into 4 pieces, right? Within brackets I'll include do not separate. right? So I'll increase this one somewhat. Don't separate, okay? Cut lime into 4 pieces, right? Cut lime into 4 pieces, but remember, don't separate, okay? Don't separate. Then the next step. So I'll use it in here. Then the next step is, my dear children, what you have to do now, you have to dip this thing, or you have to take each lime and you have to put salt crystals into it. You have to put salt crystals, okay? Not salt powder but crystals. If it is large, then it is good, okay? Put salt crystals into those lime. Put salt crystals. Right? So you need to put salt crystals into lime very well, right? Then the next step. In the next step, my dear children, what you have to do, you have to keep this in a, right? You have to place this lime in a plate and you have to dry, or you have to keep it in sunlight and dry it for about 7 to 8 days, okay? Dry it for about 7 to 8 days. Now, by looking at the, like by looking at the lime, you can check whether it is being dried out or not. You get your get help from your mother or your grandmother. They would know when it is okay. Okay, so I'll mention this thing as like this. It's okay. Now drying is very good, actually. You can dry it for about 7 to 8 days, no problem. But however, when drying, my dear children, it's important to check the condition of it according to the amount of light or the sunlight which is being received. Sometimes it may go beyond 7 or 8 days, okay, right? So therefore, when you are drying out this thing, get the help from your mother or your grandmother. They would know definitely whether the condition is okay to take out or not, okay? So normally drying out for about a week is pretty much enough. But however, up to your house conditions or up to your environmental conditions, right, from your environmental conditions, that might change, okay? So that's why I ask you to get the help from your mother or your grandmother. They would definitely know when it is going to be okay, right? So I'll write it like this: dry these well for about a week in sunlight. Right? So dry these well for about a week in sunlight. Okay, then we have to dry these things for about a week in sunlight. Then, my dear children, what you have to do, then the next step, you have to take some vinegar now and some lime juice. Prepare a solution, right? Prepare a solution of lime juice and vinegar. Prepare a solution of lime juice and vinegar. Dry it in sunlight for few days. Right. So now after keeping this system in sunlight for about 1 week, right? Okay, while keeping this thing in sunlight also you can do it, right? What you have to do, you have to take another solution. Within this solution you have to take lime juice and you have to add some vinegar. Then you have to dry it for about few days in sunlight. That solution also, okay, that solution also needed to be, right, dried out within sunlight. Okay, then my dear children, finally now we are about to finish our process. So add the above solution into a clean bottle, right? Add the above solution means this one, right? This vinegar and lime juice solution. After drying it for about few days, you need to add that solution, right, to a clean bottle. Okay, then what do you have to do? You have to add that dried lime into this solution. Okay, then add lime pieces into the bottle. Then the final step, my dear children, the last final step, seal the bottle very well. Seal the bottle well. Keep it for about 3 months, right? keep it for about 3 months and consume. So you have to seal the bottle very well after adding these things. Then you need to keep it for about 3 months, actually 2.5, 1.5, more than 1 month is good. Okay, no need to keep it for about 3 months exactly. More than 1 month you just keep it, then after you can consume. Okay, right. So this is the step. These are the steps, right? These are the steps, my dear children. So I'll mention the markings now, arrowheads. Right. So this is the making, or this is how to make what, my dear children? This is the process of making pickled lime, right? Pickled lime, lunudehi. Pickled lime. So these are the steps. You have to take fresh ripe lime. Then you need to wash them very well. Then we need to cut lime into 4 pieces. Cut lime into 4 pieces, but however, you don't separate the 4 pieces. Then put salt crystals into lime very well. We need to put salt crystals into lime very well. Then we need to dry these well for about a week in sunlight. We need to dry these things for about a week in sunlight. Then, my dear children, prepare a solution of lime juice and vinegar. We need to prepare a juice that has lime juice and vinegar. Then you have to dry it in sunlight for few days. For about 4 to 5 days, you have to dry it in sunlight. Okay. Then we need to add the above solution to a clean bottle. Then we need to add that lime pieces into the bottle. Okay. Then we need to add that lime pieces into the same bottle that has the vinegar lime juice solution. Okay. Then finally, we have to seal the bottle very well and keep it for about 3 months, more than like 1 month or 2 months. You have to keep it, right? Then, my dear children, you can consume what? Lunudehi. Okay, right. So this is the process, or this is the way of making lunudehi, or else pickled lime. Pickled lime. So try to do this thing at your home, my dear children. Get the help of your mother or grandmother or your sister, right? Get the help of your elders. Try to do this thing. Just take like 10 to 20, right? 10 to 20 lime fruits, well ripe ones, and try to do this thing. Try to follow up with making lunudehi. Okay, right. So I hope that you may do it at your home. Right. Okay, then we'll head on to see what are the other contents in our lesson. Right. Now, here it is given the next fresh topic. The next fresh topic is about, my dear children, the advantages and the disadvantages of food preservation. Okay, advantages and the disadvantages of food preservation. Under that, you are given with an assignment once again. Study well about the preserved or processed food and non-preserved food. List separately the advantages and disadvantages of consumption of preserved food and processed food. So you have to find out the advantages and disadvantages of preserved or processed food, right? Find out the advantages and disadvantages. So my dear children, advantages and disadvantages of preserved food or processed food is already given in your textbook in detail. But however, before going into that thing, let us investigate what are the advantages and disadvantages, simple advantages and simple disadvantages of preserved food. Okay, preserved food. So we'll try to get a table. So I'm going to give you a table. Advantages and disadvantages of processed or preserved food, using preserved food. So I'm not going to mention like several, but however I'll mention like 3 or 4. Okay, so in here I'll mention advantages. Here disadvantages. Right. So you have to separate these advantages and disadvantages of consumption of preserved food and processed food. So here I am going to use this thing, my dear children, preserved food. Okay, preserved food. Okay, so this is your assignment, my dear children. However, as a support I'll be giving like several points. Okay, so I'll be doing preserved food column. You find out the advantages of and disadvantages of processed food. I'll give you the advantages and disadvantages of preserved food. But however, I'll be providing only 3 advantages and 3 disadvantages. Okay, right? I'll be providing 3. You find out, you investigate and find out other details. So this is for about preserved food, my dear children. Okay, not for the processed one, only for preserved food. I'll be giving out several advantages and disadvantages. Okay, right then. Advantages. You know that by preserving food, we can minimize the spoilage. Minimize the food spoilage. Minimize the food spoilage. However, even though it is minimizing food spoilage, my dear children, there is a small bit of a problem. What is that? Even though the food spoilage is getting minimized, their texture or the taste is getting different. In preserved food, now if you take Lunu Dehi over there that we discussed, lime has a good unique sour taste. When it is being preserved as pickled lime, their taste is getting somewhat different. Definitely their taste is getting different somewhat. So in preserved food, my dear children, right, one disadvantage is that their natural taste is getting changed. Natural taste is getting definitely changed in preserved food items. Okay, natural taste is getting reduced. Then we can write natural taste of food is reduced. So natural taste of food is reduced. Then the next one. Number 2. Second advantage. Second foremost advantage is that, my dear children, right? You know that when minimizing the food spoilage, we can keep food for longer time period. So we can consume food even in the off season, right? You know that if you take fruit items, most of the fruit items, they have a season. So we, even in the off season also, right, we can consume these food items upon preservation. So we can write, my dear children, food can be consumed, right? Food can be even in off season, right? Food can be consumed even in off season, right? But however, my dear children, there's a risk, right? There's a risk, and sometimes their nutritional value will get reduced. Sometimes their nutritional value is getting reduced because of food preservation, because of the additives that you add, because of the heavy dryness, because of heavy cooking, because of subjecting to high temperature. Their nutritional level is going to be reduced rather than the natural or original level. Okay, so my dear children, upon the preservation of food, the nutritional level in food is getting reduced somewhat. So we can write as a disadvantage, natural nutritional level is reduced, right? Natural nutritional level is reduced upon preserving food. Then the next one. So if you take a preserved food item, food will have long shelf life, or else we can write in simple like this. In simple, we'll write it like this. Food can be consumed for long time period. So if you take pickled lime, my dear children, you can use pickled lime, right, for about, like few months, like 6-7 months, you can use it without any trouble. Pickled lime. Sometimes for even more than that, you can use pickled lime, right? So we can use this food item for a longer time period, my dear children. So that's an added advantage of preserving food. So food can be consumed for long time period. However, right, upon preserving food, my dear children, the unique taste is getting reduced. We wrote that thing. Natural nutritional level is getting reduced. And the other thing is that, okay, the appearance, texture is also getting reduced. Natural appearance, natural texture of the food is getting reduced or is getting changed here actually, right? So if you take lime, natural appearance is very fresh, yellowish in color, right? And like it's very pleasant to observe. But however, pickled lime is somewhat way more different than that. Okay, so the natural appearance and the texture is also getting changed upon the preservation. So we can write natural texture, right? Natural texture and appearance is changed. Right? Natural texture and appearance is changed. Right. So for the preserved food items, my dear children, these are the advantages and disadvantages. So I have mentioned here three advantages and three disadvantages. So if you take advantages, it minimizes the food spoilage, and food can be consumed even in off season. Food can be consumed for longer time period, right? Then disadvantages, natural taste of food is reduced. Then natural nutritional level is getting reduced. Natural texture and the appearance is also getting changed in preserved food. These are the disadvantages. So my dear children, I told you that I'll be giving only for the preserved food. So here within the question, you have been asked to find out processed food also. So try to find out the processed food also, okay, right? Then my dear children, you might get a good understanding about the advantages and disadvantages of preservation of food, okay, right, my dear children, okay. Now these are the advantages and disadvantages of preserved food, okay. So try to find out the advantages of and disadvantages of what? Processed food also, okay, right. So it is much more easier than this actually, right? Okay, then let's head on to see what are the other contents in our lesson. So now it is given the advantages of preservation and processing. So the advantages of preservation and processing. Now you can get a good knowledge about the things that we have already written in the earlier case, my dear children. But however, I told you that I have mentioned only three. Now let's see what are the other things in advantages, okay, of preservation or in processing of food. Right. First thing given, ability to prevent food spoilage. So we discussed that thing, right? We can prevent food spoilage or we can minimize the spoilage of food upon preservation or processing of food. So here it is given, food poisoning and alarms caused by the consumption of spoiled food can be prevented, right? So food poisoning and alarms caused by the consumption of spoiled food can be prevented by the processing or preservation of food. So you know that food is getting poisoned because of the enzymes and all the other chemicals secreted by microorganisms due to their action on food. So my dear children, there is a risk of having different kinds of diseases, and also food might get poisoned to us. So that conditions can be avoided upon the preservation process, because in preservation we reduce the growth of microorganisms, and also sometimes we destroy the microorganisms present within the food. So it is an added advantage. Okay, food poisoning can be reduced. Next one, ability to select according to appetite, because the same source of food is prepared in different ways. So there are some people who have allergies. There are some people who might have allergies to milk, fresh milk. But however, like for kalkiri and for sterilized milk and for the different kinds of flavored milk packets, they won't have that trouble. They will not have that trouble. Sometimes there are some people who do not prefer fresh milk, but however, they would love to have those kinds of pasteurized milk. So my dear children, it's giving us a different kind of an appetite. The same food item, but however, it creates a different kind of an appetite. It gives an extra chance to try out different ways of food, the preservation. So it is also an added advantage, right? It is also an added advantage. So my dear children, see, ability to select according to the appetite, according to the way we need, we can use it. According to the, like the taste that we want, we can use it. Okay, especially in preparation of food, in processing food, in preservation of food, there are some food items which the flavor or the taste is getting enhanced because of the additives. A good example is the previous one which I told you about the milk. So in that case, my dear children, a different kind of an appetite is getting created among the people for different kinds of foods. Okay, so it is an added advantage. Next one, ability to impart an attractive look for food, right? Ability to impart an attractive look for food, right? It's giving out a good look, an appearance. Sometimes in some food items, my dear children, upon the preservation, their appearance is getting somewhat dull. But however, there are some different kinds of food, some other types of food, when you add additives and when you preserve it well, their appearance is getting enhanced. Okay, their appearance is getting, like it's giving out a good attractive look. Milk is a good example. When you take kalkiri, it has a good attractive look. Sometimes it comes with it comes with some amount of chocolate flavored ones, right? So it gives out a good attractive look. By that way, people would tend to get these things because of the appearance and the attractiveness. Okay, then the next one, ability to increase the nutritional value of some food types, yogurt, cheese, by changing their existing nature. So my dear children, this is for sometimes, okay? Sometimes we can increase the nutritional level also. Normally, my dear children, upon preservation, nutritional level is getting changed somewhat. But however, we can change so that it would increase, not to decrease. Right? Examples are given, yogurt and cheese. In these items, the nutritional level is getting increased because of the preservation. Then, utilize the surplus effectively. That means, my dear children, you know that in fruit season, heavy amount of fruits are getting produced by a plant. If you take a mango plant, large amount of fruits are getting produced. However, all the fruits cannot be eaten. There are some certain fruits which are getting spoiled. So, we can utilize this like up to at least 70 to 80%. And we can effectively use this surplus, that extra ones which are getting spoiled here and there. These things can be effectively used upon the preservation. Now, in simple sense, we eat some amount of mangoes, freshly or newly taken mangoes, right, from our plant. We'll imagine that we have a mango plant. However, now after consuming these things, some amount of mangoes are getting wasted, right? Let's imagine that from our mango plant, I am going to receive 100 mango fruits. So I will be able to eat only 10 or 15 mangoes, because, my dear children, all the mangoes are going to ripe at the same time or during the same time period. So all the 100 mangoes are going to ripe at a certain time period, at a certain, like, will take like 5 days. So within 5 days, all the 100 mangoes are now being ripe. So I can only eat up to 10 to 15. Then what would happen to remaining 80? So that remaining 80 should be thrown away. However, if you prepare jam out of those things, then what will happen? Then, my dear children, you can keep that jam for about few months. And the other case is that you have utilized that all 100 mangoes for your consumption. So you have effectively used the extra amount or the surplus without throwing it to the environment or without wasting the food. Okay, so that is an added advantage of food preservation. Then the next one, let's see. Ability to keep them for off-season consumption. So I told you that even in the off-season we can consume it, right? Minimize the damage caused by insects and other animals. So it's all obviously we can protect preserved food items as we are canning or packaging it. Definitely we can protect these food items from other insects and other microorganisms like houseflies. Okay. Right, so these are the advantages of food processing or preservation. Now let's head on to see what are the disadvantages of food preservation. First one, running a risk of being prone to diseases for the addition of non-permitted additives and addition beyond the prescribed limit. Right. So my dear children, because of adding large amount of additives and adding more than the prescribed limit, there is a risk of getting different kinds of non-communicable diseases like cancers, heart attacks, cholesterol, and so on. So this is a disadvantage of consuming preserved food, because we don't know, my dear children, how much is the amount which is added to the food item which we are using, right? We don't know, right? Even the label even the label is going to state that this much is added. We can't show it. We don't know. So there is a risk. Okay, there is a risk. Sometimes they might add more than the prescribed limit. So in that case, there is a risk. Okay, getting diseases. Next one. Increasing the risk of causing diseases. Examples: cancers, diabetes, heart diseases, due to artificial additives such as flavors, colorings. So this one I already told you that, okay, these non-communicable diseases mainly caused because of the preservatives and the additives which are being added to the food. Okay, so in these days your doctors are also being mentioned that try to minimize the instant food items, right? Try to minimize the instant food items. Those things are not good for our health. Try to minimize those things. It's because of the preservatives and the additives which are being added to the food items. They would destroy your health gradually. Okay, so there is a risk in getting diseases like non-communicable diseases like cancers, heart attacks, cholesterol, diabetes upon using preserved or processed food, my dear children, mainly because of the additives. Okay, mainly because of the additives. Then the next one, possibility to destroying vitamins and other nutrients. So I told you this thing also. There is a possibility of destroying the natural nutritional level. Upon heat it, you know that we heat and we dry out these things upon the preservation process. Okay, so during the drying out and during the during subjecting to extreme temperature, there is a high possibility of destroying the nutritional level. Okay, so that is also a disadvantage. There is also a disadvantage, my dear children. Then the next one, tendency to change the characteristic like flavor, smell, color of the food. This is also we discussed in the earlier when we are discussing about the table related to the preservation, my dear children. I drew a table, you could remember. So in that part we discussed about changing the color, then the appearance, then the texture, and also the flavor of food, right? Upon preservation, these things are going to change. Then the next one, reduce the desire for natural food and getting used to consumption of instant food. That is also a very big disadvantage. I told you that mainly this thing is happening because of our lifestyle, our complicated lifestyle, right? So most of the times people are now tending to use instant food items and they are getting away from the natural food items because those things are very hard to prepare, right? Some food items are very hard to prepare. So most of the times these people, right, these you normally urbanized people who are living in towns and cities, these people are tending to, or they have they are showing a greater probability in consuming what, this instant food, because my dear children, with their lifestyle, they won't be able to, or they won't have any time period actually in order to consume these fresh food items, and also it would take somewhat time to prepare these things. So that's why most of the people who are living in towns and cities, they would tend to use instant food, and their life is also now being adapted to use these instant food. So there is a disadvantage. Natural food items, natural food taste is now getting disappeared from our urban society. So it's also an added disadvantage. Okay, right. So these are the advantages and disadvantages of food preservation, my dear children. Okay, if the food is being preserved or processed, there are some advantages and as well as there are some disadvantages. Okay, however, my dear children, preserving food is a good thing because we can utilize the food for a longer time period and we can minimize the food spoilage. However, right, we have to follow up with correct and the best methods to preserve. Okay, always we need to try out, always we need to follow safe and healthier methods in preserving food. By that way, my dear children, we can overcome most of these disadvantages. Okay, right then. So we discussed several things related to the advantages and disadvantages of food preservation, my dear children, and also we have discussed how to prepare a certain type of a preserved food, and we discussed another type of a preserved food, right? How to prepare, what are the methods or what are the steps in making another type of a preserved food. And also we discussed finally about the disadvantages and advantages. Okay, so within this chapter now came to the end, my dear children. We came to the end of this chapter. In our next chapter, my dear children, we'll be discussing about other things related to the lesson part. Okay, so till then it's time to say goodbye.